Jake Morrison walked through the giant crystal halls of the Galactic Council building, and his boots made small sounds on the shiny floor. The place was huge and filled with strange beings from all over the galaxy, and they were all talking in their own languages, which made a low buzzing sound that filled the air. Jake was wearing his best diplomatic suit, and he felt nervous but tried not to show it because today would decide if humans could join the most important group in the galaxy. Behind him walked Lisa Carter, who was carrying a bag full of papers and data files about Earth and humanity, and she was also nervous, but she had been training for this moment for 3 years. The human delegation had waited 8 months just to get this meeting, and now they were finally here in the most important building in known space. The council chamber was bigger than any stadium on Earth, and it had thousands of seats arranged in circles that went up and up like a mountain made of chairs. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien, and some were filled with water for the fish people, while others had special gas mixtures for beings who breathed different air. The whole place smelled like a mix of every possible smell in the universe. Council Speaker Zixthara stood at the center podium, and she was taller than 3 humans standing on top of each other. Her body looked like a giant insect with black armor plates that reflected the lights, and her voice was so deep it made the floor vibrate when she spoke. She had been the council speaker for over 2,000 years and had seen hundreds of species come and go. "The assembly will come to order," Zixthara announced, and her voice was translated into every language in the galaxy at the same time. The thousands of different aliens stopped talking and turned to look at the small group of humans standing in the center of the chamber. Jake felt like a tiny ant surrounded by giants. "Today we hear the request of the species called humans from the planet Earth," Zixthara continued, and Jake could hear some of the aliens making sounds that might have been laughter. "They seek membership in our council after existing as a spacefaring species for barely 50 years. Jake stepped forward to the speaking platform and looked up at all the alien faces staring down at him. Some had multiple eyes, while others had no eyes at all and used different senses to see. There were beings made of rock and others that looked like living plants, and some that seemed to be made of pure energy contained in special suits. "Honored council members," Jake began, and his voice was carried to every corner of the massive chamber by the translation system. "I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, and I represent all of humanity. We come before you not as beggars asking for help, but as equals who wish to contribute to the peace and prosperity of the galaxy." The sound that came from the audience was definitely laughter this time, and it came from hundreds of different species all at once. Some made barking sounds, while others whistled, and a few just vibrated their bodies. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "We know that humanity is young compared to the great civilizations represented here," Jake said calmly. "But we believe that our youth gives us something valuable to offer. We see problems with fresh eyes, and we are not bound by the old ways of thinking that have kept this galaxy in the same patterns for thousands of years." Council member Vrexkin leaned forward in his seat, and his forearms gestured dismissively. He was from a warrior species that had conquered dozens of worlds before joining the council, and he looked like he was made of metal and sharp edges. "Young human," he said with a voice like grinding gears, "what could a species that has not even left its home star system offer to civilizations that have ruled the galaxy since before your son was born?" Jake had expected this question, and he was ready for it. "We offer innovation," he replied. "We offer determination and the willingness to try new approaches to old problems. We offer the ability to adapt and survive in conditions that would challenge even the most advanced species. Adaptation?" asked Council Member Tisara, whose snake-like body was coiled around her floating chair. "Every species adapts or dies. This is not special. What makes you think humans are different from the thousands of other primitive species we have encountered?" Lisa Carter stepped forward and whispered something in Jake's ear. He nodded and looked back up at the council. "Because we have already done things that your science says are impossible," he said simply. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the translation machines. Even the most advanced species in the galaxy had heard rumors about strange things happening in the human solar system, but they had dismissed them as impossible or exaggerated. Impossible is a strong word, Zixtara said carefully. Perhaps you would care to explain what you mean by this claim. Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. We would be happy to demonstrate, he said. But first we need to know if this council is truly interested in seeing something new or if you have already decided to reject us based on our age as a species. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jake was essentially asking the most powerful beings in the galaxy to admit that they might be wrong about something. It was either very brave or very stupid, and most of the council members could not decide which. Very well, Zixtara said after a long pause. Show us what you believe to be impossible. But know that if you waste our time with simple tricks, we will not only reject your membership, but we will restrict all human travel beyond your solar system for the next millennium. Jake nodded slowly. The stakes had just gotten much higher, but he had come too far to back down now. Lisa, he said quietly, call in Amy and Rex. It's time to show them what humans can really do. The chamber waited as two more humans entered. Through a side door, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was carrying a small device that seemed to glow with its own light, and Commander Rex Sullivan walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen many battles. The four humans stood together in the center of the vast chamber, surrounded by thousands of alien beings who thought they knew everything about the universe. Jake looked up at Speaker Zixtara and nodded. We're ready to begin. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward and held up the glowing device for everyone to see. It was about the size of a human hand, and it pulsed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from inside the metal itself. The device made no sound, but somehow everyone in the chamber could sense that it was doing something important. Council members, Amy said, and her voice was steady despite the fact that she was talking to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. What you are about to see represents a breakthrough in quantum physics that we achieved 3 years ago. We call it quantum entanglement projection. Several of the alien scientists in the audience made sounds of disbelief. Quantum entanglement was a theoretical concept that most species had tried to master for thousands of years without success. The energy requirements alone were supposed to be impossible for any civilization to achieve. Amy pressed the button on the device, and suddenly the air above the central platform began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmering grew stronger and then started to take shape, and within seconds, there was a perfect three-dimensional image floating in the air above their heads. But this was not just any image. It was a real-time view of Earth's solar system, showing the exact positions of all the planets and moons and asteroids at that very moment. The image was so clear that individual spacecraft could be seen moving between the planets, and the surface features of Earth were visible in perfect detail. "This is impossible," whispered Council Member Tessara, and her snake-like body coiled tighter around her chair. Quantum entanglement across galactic distances requires the energy output of an entire star. No species has ever achieved this. Amy smiled and touched another control on her device. The image zoomed in to show a single human city on Earth, and then zoomed in further to show individual buildings and even people walking on the streets. "The trick is not to use brute force," she explained. "We discovered that quantum particles can be linked through dimensional folds that exist in space-time itself. By using these natural folds, we can maintain entanglement across any distance, with minimal energy input." The chamber was completely silent now, except for the soft humming of the translation machines. Even the most advanced species in the council had never seen anything like this. The implications were staggering, because if humans could create real-time images of any location in the galaxy, then they could also use the technology for communication and surveillance, and possibly even transportation. Council member Vrexkin leaned forward, and his metal face showed something that might have been concern. "This technology could be used for military purposes," he said slowly. "Real-time intelligence gathering across unlimited distances would give any species an enormous advantage in warfare." Jake stepped forward and nodded. "Yes, it could be used for military purposes," he agreed. "But we prefer to use it for exploration. and scientific research. We have mapped 17 different star systems using this technology, and we have identified dozens of potentially habitable worlds that were previously unknown. 17 star systems? Asked another council member, whose body looked like it was made of living crystal. In how much time? 6 months. Amy replied simply. The sound that came from the audience was not laughter this time, but gasps and whispers of amazement. The fastest ships in the galaxy took years to travel between star systems, and even then they could only gather limited information. The humans were claiming to have done the work of centuries in just 6 months. Speaker Zixthara stood up from her massive chair and looked down at the small group of humans. Even if this technology is real, she said carefully, it represents a potential threat to the security of every species in the galaxy. How can we trust that humans will use such power responsibly? Commander Rex Sullivan stepped forward for the first time since entering the chamber. He had been standing quietly in the background, but now he moved with the confident stride of someone who had commanded troops in battle. Because we have already proven our responsibility, he said in a voice that carried easily through the vast chamber. Proven how? Demanded Vrexkin. Rex looked directly at the alien warrior. We have had this technology for 3 years, and we have used it to save lives rather than take them. When the mining colony on Kepler 442b was hit by solar flares, we used quantum entanglement to coordinate their rescue before any other species even knew they were in danger. When the research station at Volf 359 lost contact, we found them and guided rescue ships to their location. Lisa Carter stepped forward and activated a holographic display that showed records of human rescue operations. In the past 3 years, we have saved over 40,000 lives from 17 different species, she said. We have shared our medical knowledge freely, and we have helped establish trade routes that have benefited dozens of worlds. The council members looked at each other with expressions that ranged from amazement to concern to outright fear. This was not what they had expected from a species they considered primitive and potentially dangerous. Furthermore, Jake continued, we have developed biological enhancement techniques that allow our people to survive in environments that would be lethal to most other species. We do not see hostile worlds as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and exploration. Amy activated another function on her device, and suddenly the air filled with a detailed molecular diagram showing the structure of human DNA. We have learned to modify our own genetic code to adapt to different atmospheres and gravity levels and radiation environments, she explained. This means we can establish colonies on worlds that other species consider uninhabitable. Genetic modification of living beings is forbidden by council law, Tassara said sharply. Such experimentation is considered dangerous and unethical. Only when it is forced upon unwilling subjects, Jake replied calmly. Our volunteers undergo the modifications willingly and with full knowledge of the risks and benefits. We have established thriving colonies on 12 different worlds using these techniques. The number hit the council like a physical blow. Most species in the galaxy had never successfully colonized more than 2 or 3 worlds outside their home systems. The humans were claiming to have established 12 colonies in just 50 years of space travel. This is beginning to sound less like a request for membership and more like a demonstration of superiority, Vrexkin said with a voice like grinding metal. Are you here to join us or to replace us? Jake looked around the chamber at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. Some showed curiosity, others showed fear, and a few showed something that might have been respect. We are here to offer partnership, he said simply. We believe that human innovation combined with the wisdom and experience of the elder species could benefit everyone in the galaxy. And if we refuse? Asked Speaker ZYX single quotes as ARA. The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. Jake looked at his team and then back up at the council speaker. Then we will continue to explore and expand on our own, he said quietly. But we would prefer to do it as friends rather than strangers. The chamber erupted in discussions as council members activated their private communication channels to debate among themselves. The humans stood quietly in the center of the chaos and waited for the galaxy's most powerful beings to decide their fate. The council chamber buzzed with urgent conversations as thousands of aliens debated in their native languages through secure communication channels. Jake could see clusters of species gathering together, and their body language suggested they were deeply concerned about what they had just witnessed. The casual dismissal of humanity had transformed into something much more serious and potentially dangerous. Speaker. Zixthara called for order, and the chamber gradually fell silent. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that had not been there before. The Council has discussed your demonstrations, and we have reached a preliminary consensus. While your technological achievements are impressive, they also raise serious concerns about the safety and stability of the galactic community. Jake felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. What kind of concerns? He asked. Your species has existed as a unified civilization for barely 50 years, Zixthara replied. Before that, your history is filled with wars and conflicts and territorial disputes. You have weapons capable of destroying your entire planet, and you have come close to using them on multiple occasions. That is correct, Jake acknowledged. But we learned from those mistakes. We established a unified planetary government, and we have maintained peace for 50 years. We have redirected our military resources toward exploration and defense rather than conquest. Council member Vrexkin made a sound like grinding gears. 50 years is nothing. My species has maintained galactic peace for over 50,000 years. You are children playing with weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Every species in this chamber has a history of warfare, Jake replied calmly. The difference is that we have evolved beyond our violent past, and we have done it quickly. We believe that rapid adaptation is one of humanity's greatest strengths. Or greatest weaknesses, added Council Member Tassara. Rapid change can lead to instability and unpredictable behavior. The quantum entanglement technology you demonstrated could be used to spy on any world in the galaxy without detection. The genetic modification techniques could be used to create super soldiers designed for conquest. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward. We have shared our research freely with the scientific community, and we have established ethical guidelines for all our experiments. We are not trying to create weapons, but to solve problems and improve life for all species. Your intentions may be good, Zixthara said carefully, but good intentions do not guarantee good outcomes. The Council has seen many species with good intentions who eventually became threats to galactic stability. Jake looked around the chamber and saw that many of the Council members were nodding in agreement. The fear in their eyes was becoming more obvious as they realized that humanity was not the primitive species they had expected. What are you proposing? He asked. The Council believes that humanity requires a period of monitored development before it can be safely integrated into the galactic community, Zixthara announced. We propose a quarantine period during which human activity will be restricted to your home solar system while we observe your progress and ensure your stability. A quarantine? Jake's voice remained calm, but Lisa Carter could see the tension in his shoulders. For how long? Our experts estimate that a minimum of 10,000 years will be required to determine if your species can develop the wisdom necessary to handle advanced technology responsibly. The number hit the human delegation like a physical blow. 10,000 years was longer than all of recorded human history. It was a sentence that would confine humanity to a single solar system for hundreds of generations. 10,000 years, Jake repeated slowly. And during this time we would be forbidden from leaving our solar system or making contact with other species? Correct? Rexkin said with satisfaction. Any attempt to violate the quarantine would be met with military action by the combined fleets of the Council. This is for the safety of all civilized species in the galaxy. Commander Rex Sullivan moved slightly closer to Jake, and his hand rested casually near his sidearm. The gesture was subtle, but several Council members noticed it and their own security. Forces began to shift position. I see, Jake said quietly. So, despite our demonstrations of peaceful intentions and our offers of cooperation, you have decided that we are too dangerous to be allowed freedom of movement in our own galaxy. It is not a punishment, Zixtara said. It is a precautionary measure. Many species have undergone similar periods of monitored development before achieving full council membership. How many of those species had already developed faster than light travel and interstellar colonies? Jake asked. The question hung in the air without an answer because the truth was that no other species had ever been quarantined after achieving interstellar capability. The quarantine was being imposed specifically because humanity had advanced too quickly and had developed technologies that threatened the established order. The decision is final, Rexkin declared. Earth and all human colonies will be placed under council protection immediately. Any resistance will be considered an act of aggression against the galactic community. Jake looked at his team and saw his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They had come here hoping for partnership and cooperation, but instead they had been offered a prison sentence that would last for centuries. The council was not interested in working with humanity, but in controlling them. Protection. Jake said the word like it tasted bad in his mouth. You mean imprisonment? Call it what you like, Tassara said dismissively. The safety of the galaxy is more important than the hurt feelings of one young species. The insult was deliberate and designed to provoke a reaction. Jake felt his anger rising, but he forced himself to remain calm. Getting emotional now would only confirm their beliefs about human instability. Before we accept your generous offer of protection, Jake said with careful politeness, I would like to make sure I understand the situation correctly. You are saying that humanity has committed no crimes and broken no laws, but you are going to imprison us anyway because you are afraid of what we might do. We prefer to think of it as preventive care, Zixtara replied. And if we refuse to accept this preventive care, then you will be forced to accept it, Rexkin said bluntly. The council has the authority and the power to enforce its decisions. Jake nodded slowly and looked around the chamber one more time. Thousands of alien faces stared down at him with expressions ranging from pity to contempt to fear. These were the beings who claimed to represent the highest levels of civilization in the galaxy, but they were acting like frightened children who wanted to lock away anything they did not understand. I need to make a communication to my government. Jake said finally, this is not a decision I can make alone. You may communicate with Earth, Zixtara allowed, but be aware that Council forces are already moving into position around your solar system. Any attempt to flee or resist will be met with overwhelming force. Jake activated his communication device and spoke directly to the President of Earth. Madam President, this is Ambassador Morrison reporting from the Galactic Council. I need to inform you that the Council has rejected our membership application and is instead implementing a quarantine of human space. They are demanding that we accept confinement to our solar system for the next 10,000 years. The response came back immediately through the quantum entanglement communicator. Understood, Ambassador. What is your assessment of the situation? Jake looked up at the thousands of aliens surrounding him and smiled grimly. Madam President, I believe the Council has just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They have essentially declared war on humanity while assuming we are too weak to fight back. The chamber fell silent as the implications of Jake's words sank in. Several council members began to look nervous as they realized that the human diplomat was not reacting with the fear and submission they had expected. Stand by for my response, Jake said into his communicator. Then he looked up at Speaker Zixtara and his expression hardened. You wanted to know what humanity could offer the galaxy. Now you're about to find out. Jake Morrison stood in the center of the vast chamber and looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. The communication device in his hand crackled with static as he waited for the final response from Earth. When it came, the voice was calm and clear and carried the authority of humanity's elected leader. Ambassador Morrison, you are authorized to respond to the Council's ultimatum with the full backing of the United Earth government. Show them what humanity is truly capable of. Jake closed the communication device and slipped it back into his pocket. When he looked up again, his expression had changed completely. The diplomatic politeness was gone, and in its place was something that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Speaker Zixthara and honored council members, Jake began, and his voice carried easily through the chambers. Acoustics. I have received my government's response to your generous offer of protection. We respectfully decline. The chamber erupted in surprised voices as thousands of aliens began talking at once. Vrexkin leaned forward and his metal face showed obvious anger. You cannot decline. The council has made its decision, and that decision will be enforced whether you agree or not. I understand, Jake replied calmly. You have decided that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed free movement in the galaxy. You have decided that we must be contained for the safety of all civilized species. You have decided that we are a threat that must be controlled. Exactly, Tessara said with satisfaction. Finally, you understand your position. Jake smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Oh, I understand perfectly. You have declared that the human species is an enemy of the galactic community. You have announced your intention to use military force against us if we do not submit to your demands. You have made your position crystal clear. We have made no such declaration, Zixthara protested. We are offering protection, not threatening war. Are you? Jake asked. You have said that council forces are already moving into position around our solar system. You have said that any attempt to resist will be met with overwhelming force. You have said that you will imprison an entire species for crimes they have not committed and might never commit. Tell me, Speaker, how is this different from an act of war? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Several council members began to look nervous as they realized that the human diplomat was not backing down as they had expected. Because we are trying to prevent war, Zixthara said carefully. We are trying to prevent the chaos that would result from allowing an unstable species to spread throughout the galaxy. Unstable, Jake repeated the word thoughtfully. You call us unstable because we have developed advanced technology quickly. You call us dangerous because we have found solutions to problems that you have been unable to solve for thousands of years. You call us a threat because we represent something new in a galaxy that has become comfortable with the old ways. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward and activated her quantum entanglement device again. This time, instead of showing Earth's solar system, the display showed a detailed map of the local galactic region with hundreds of star systems marked in different colors. The red dots represent systems where council member species have established colonies, she explained. The blue dots represent systems where humans have established outposts or research stations. The yellow dots represent systems where we have provided humanitarian aid or disaster relief. The map showed a clear pattern. Human activity was concentrated in regions that other species had ignored or abandoned. They had established colonies on worlds that were considered too dangerous or difficult for other species to inhabit. As you can see, Amy continued, we have not been competing with council species for resources or territory. We have been exploring and settling regions that you considered worthless or uninhabitable. This only proves that you are expanding. Aggressively, Vrexkin said dismissively. You are spreading faster than any species in galactic history. We are exploring, Jake corrected. We are learning, we are growing. These are not crimes, no matter how much they might frighten you. Commander Rex Sullivan stepped forward, and for the first time since entering the chamber he spoke directly to the council. You want to know what makes humans different from other species? We do not accept limits that others place on us. We do not accept that something is impossible just because it has never been done before. We do not accept that we must wait 10,000 years for permission to live as free beings in our own galaxy. You are one species against 1,000. Tizara hissed, your arrogance will be your destruction. Our determination will be our salvation, Rex replied calmly. And your fear will be your downfall. Jake looked around the chamber one more time and saw that the mood had shifted dramatically. The council members were no longer treating this as a simple administrative decision. They were beginning to realize that they were facing something they had never encountered before, a species that would not be intimidated or controlled. I want to make sure there is no misunderstanding, Jake said clearly. The Galactic Council has announced its intention to use military force to confine humanity to our home solar system. This represents an unprovoked act of aggression against a peaceful species that has committed no crimes and broken no laws. We are preventing future crimes, Zixthara said desperately. We are protecting the galaxy from potential chaos. You are attacking us because you are afraid of us? Jake replied bluntly. You are using force because you cannot compete with us. You are trying to destroy what you cannot control. The chamber fell silent as Jake reached into his diplomatic pouch and pulled out a small recording device. He held it up so everyone could see it and then activated it. This is Ambassador Jake Morrison of the United Earth Government, speaking to the Galactic Council on Stardate 2157.3. I am hereby delivering humanity's formal response to the Council's ultimatum. The recording device projected Jake's voice throughout the chamber and beyond to every communication network in the galaxy. What he said next would be remembered for thousands of years as the moment when everything changed. The Galactic Council has declared that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed freedom of movement in our own galaxy. They have threatened to use military force to confine us to our home solar system for 10,000 years. They have announced their intention to treat us as prisoners for crimes we have not committed. Jake paused and looked directly at Speaker Zixthara. Therefore, on behalf of the United Earth Government and all human colonies, I hereby declare that the Galactic Council has committed an act of war against humanity. We reject your ultimatum. We reject your quarantine. We reject your authority over human space and human lives. The explosion of voices that followed was deafening. Thousands of aliens began shouting in dozens of languages while security forces moved toward the human delegation. But Jake was not finished. Furthermore, he continued, and his voice cut through the chaos, any council ships that enter human space without permission will be considered hostile and will be destroyed. Any attempt to enforce your illegal quarantine will be met with military resistance. Any council member species that supports this act of aggression will be considered an enemy of humanity. You are insane, Rexkin roared. You are declaring war on the entire galaxy. No, Jake replied calmly as Rex Sullivan's hand found his weapon. We are declaring war on tyranny. We are declaring war on oppression. We are declaring war on the idea that fear gives you the right to imprison innocent people. Lisa Carter activated her own communication device and spoke directly to the Earth Defense Force. This is Lisa Carter reporting from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Morrison has delivered our formal declaration. All human forces are authorized to engage hostile targets. The chamber erupted in complete chaos as council members realized that the humans had not come here to negotiate but to deliver an ultimatum of their own. Jake Morrison looked up at the thousands of aliens surrounding him and smiled grimly. You wanted to know what humanity could offer the galaxy, he said. Now you know, we offer freedom. We offer the right to explore and grow and dream without asking permission from those who are afraid of change. And we are willing to fight for that freedom no matter what the cost. The war that would reshape the galaxy had begun. The human delegation left the Galactic Council, stationed within minutes of Jake's declaration, and their ship disappeared into quantum space before any council security forces could stop them. Behind them, the great chamber erupted in chaos as thousands of representatives shouted demands for immediate military action against the upstart human species. 3 days later, the first council enforcement fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Rexville commanded 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, representing 12 different species and carrying enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. The fleet moved in perfect formation as it approached the boundary that separated human space from the rest of the galaxy. All ships maintain formation, Rexville commanded from the bridge of his flagship. We are here to establish a blockade and demonstrate the futility of human resistance. These primitives need to learn that the Council's authority cannot be challenged. The alien admiral studied the tactical displays showing the inner solar system. Earth hung in space like a blue jewel surrounded by its defensive platforms and orbital installations. The human colonies on Mars and the asteroid belt showed normal activity with no signs of military preparation. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting one human vessel approaching our position. It appears to be alone." Rexville looked at the display and saw a single human ship moving toward his fleet. The vessel was angular and efficient-looking, unlike the organic curves of most galactic ships. It was also much smaller than his flagship and appeared to be outgunned by at least 50 to 1. "One ship," Rexville said with amusement. "They send one ship against 50. Their species truly is insane." The human ship came to a stop just outside weapons range and opened a communication channel. The view screen flickered to life, showing a human female in military uniform standing on a bridge that looked surprisingly advanced for such a primitive species. "This is Admiral Kate Murphy of the Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "You are trespassing in human space. You have 10 minutes to withdraw or face the consequences." Rexville laughed and his mandibles clicked together in the alien equivalent of amusement. "I am Admiral Rexville of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You will stand down immediately and submit to Council authority. Your resistance is pointless and will only result in your destruction." "Admiral Rexville," Kate replied politely, "I'm going to give you one more chance to withdraw peacefully. This is not a negotiation or a bluff. This is a warning." "A warning?" Rexville could barely contain his laughter. "You have one ship against 50 and you dare to threaten me? Your species has clearly lost touch with reality." Kate nodded as if she had expected this response. "Very well, you have made your choice. All ships, please take note that Council forces have refused to withdraw from human space and have indicated their intention to use force against human vessels." "What ships?" Rexville demanded. "You have one ship against my entire fleet." Kate smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Communications officer, activate the quantum resonance field." The space around the human ship began to shimmer and distort like heat waves rising from a desert. The shimmer grew stronger and started to spread outward in all directions. Within seconds, the single human vessel was surrounded by dozens of identical ships, each one a perfect copy of the original. "Impossible," Rexville whispered as his tactical displays showed the impossible sight of 100 human ships where moments before there had been only one. "Quantum multiplication," Kate explained casually. "We can create temporary duplicates of any object, including starships. The duplicates exist for about an hour before quantum coherence breaks down, but that is more than enough time for what we need to do." The Council fleet was now facing odds of 2 to 1 against them, and every human ship appeared to be fully armed and operational. Rexville looked at his tactical displays and felt something he had not experienced in decades of military service, fear. "This is some kind of trick," he said desperately. "Holograms or sensor ghosts. No species has ever achieved quantum multiplication on this scale. Would you like to test that theory?" Kate asked. "I can have my ships open fire and you can see for yourself whether they are real or not." Rexville looked around his bridge and saw his officers staring at the displays with expressions of shock and disbelief. The human fleet was arranging itself in attack formation and weapon systems were powering up across all 100 ships. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with a shaking voice, "their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Energy signatures are off the charts. Furthermore," Kate continued, "I should mention that our quantum multiplication technology is just one of several surprises we have developed. Would you like to see what else we can do, or would you prefer to withdraw and report back to your council?" Rexville found himself in an impossible situation. His fleet was outnumbered 2 to 1 by ships that appeared to possess technology far beyond anything the council had ever encountered. The logical choice was to withdraw and report back to the council, but his pride and his duty demanded that he at least attempt to carry out his mission. "All ships prepare for battle," he commanded. "Target the original human vessel and ignore the duplicates." "Sir," his tactical officer said nervously, "we cannot determine which ship is the original. The quantum signatures are identical across all vessels. Kate's voice came through the communication channel again. Admiral, I can see that you are preparing to attack. Before you do, I want you to understand exactly what you are facing. Our ships are equipped with quantum-enhanced weapons that can punch through any known shielding system. Our armor is made from materials that do not exist in normal space-time. Our tactical computers can process battle scenarios faster than your best pilots can think. Enough talk, Rexville snarled. All ships open fire. The Council fleet unleashed a devastating barrage of energy weapons that lit up the darkness of space like an artificial sun. Plasma cannons and particle beams and fusion torpedoes streaked toward the human ships in a display of firepower that should have been enough to destroy a small moon, but something impossible happened. The weapons simply passed through the human ships without causing any damage at all. The energy beams went right through the hulls as if the ships were made of empty space, while the torpedoes exploded harmlessly against shields that seemed to exist in a different dimension. What is happening? Rexville demanded. Why are our weapons not hitting them? Phase-shifted defensive systems, Kate explained calmly. Our ships can shift partially out of normal space-time, which makes them immune to conventional weapons. We learned this technique from studying quantum mechanics that your species dismissed as impossible. The human fleet began to move, and their formation was unlike anything Rexville had ever seen. Instead of the traditional battle lines favored by most species, the human ships moved in three-dimensional patterns that seemed to defy the basic principles of space combat. Now, let me show you what our weapons can do, Kate said, and her voice carried a note of cold determination. The human ships opened fire, and their weapons were unlike anything in the galactic arsenal. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired what appeared to be controlled distortions in space-time itself. The distortions moved toward the Council ships, and when they made contact, the results were devastating. Council vessels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed or vaporized, but erased from reality as if they had never been built. Entire starships disappeared without explosions or debris fields, leaving only empty space where moments before there had been proud warships of the galactic fleet. Impossible, Rexville whispered as he watched 5 of his ships vanish in the span of seconds. No weapon can simply delete matter from existence. Quantum dissolution, Kate explained. We can disrupt the quantum bonds that hold matter together and cause it to revert to its component particles. The process is completely clean and leaves no radiation or debris. Rexville looked at his tactical displays and realized that his fleet was being systematically erased from existence by weapons that should not be possible. In less than 5 minutes, he had lost 15 ships without inflicting any damage on the human fleet. All ships withdraw immediately, he commanded. Fall back to the rally point and prepare for emergency jump to Council space. A wise decision? Kate said approvingly. Admiral, I want you to deliver a message to your Council. Tell them that humanity will not be contained or controlled. Tell them that any further attempts to enforce their illegal quarantine will be met with escalating force. Tell them that we are not the primitive species they thought we were. The surviving Council ships jumped to hyperspace and disappeared into the darkness, leaving the human fleet alone in the void between stars. As they watched the alien vessels flee, Kate turned to her communications officer. Send a message to Earth Defense Command, she ordered. First contact with Council forces has been completed. Enemy fleet has been repelled with minimal casualties on our side. Recommend immediate implementation of Phase 2 defensive preparations. Back on Earth, President Lavra Hayes stood in the Situation Room of the Global Defense Command watching the tactical feeds from the battle. Around her, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the top scientists of the human space program studied data with expressions